Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. All right, we're going to go ahead and start now. It's going to be pretty informal, but I do have like slides that I want to get through. And I have moments where we're going to stop and discuss things. So if you have questions as I'm going, if you feel like it's really important, you want to get it out, go ahead and raise your hand. We can talk about it. But if you think of something and you think it can wait, I have several places along the way that we can stop and discuss. Okay, so before I get started into the actual presentation, there's a couple things I want to get out of the way, like about this presentation and some of the key concepts that are in here that help my story go along. And also, I hadn't planned this before, but I ended up adding slides for my background when I was coming here because nobody knows me, and I know some of the other speakers are YouTube stars and everybody knows them. But it is hilarious because after Satpal Virji's talk this morning, I literally start with a picture of me from my Facebook profile saying, "Who am I? And what am I doing here?" And the next sequence of slides almost hits every single bullet point he put up. So just take it with a grain of salt. I was just trying to get you guys to know me better. And I'm going to work on this whole, ego thing that we discussed today. So this is my family. Jasukor, my kids, Kesar Singh, Harnurkor, and Baj Singh. I work at Remax as an associate broker, but I have my own company where I flip houses, and I have a property management company where we do new construction. So I'm pretty involved in real estate. And I do flip houses almost just like you see on TV shows. All those flip this house shows and everything. It's pretty much what I do. It's not nearly as produced and funny as their shows are, but it's still fun and exciting for me. Born in California, grew up in Ohio. Pretty much spent my life growing up in Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is a pretty isolated place for minorities. But still, things happen for a reason. I think we were discussing this yesterday with somebody. Things happen in our lives for reasons. I was in Beaver Creek for a reason. Growing up, we had no Sikhi in our life. We weren't really into Sikhi. We had Gurdwara twice a year, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpurab and Vaisakhi. We rented the basement of a bank and we held a little program. And somehow, I don't even know how this all came together, but Bhai Mandheer Singh SDO and Chani Ji used to come do kirtan in Ohio, and we used to play in the background. You can hear us yelling and screaming in the tapes, old tapes. But now I listen to those tapes. But what happened that was significant was 1984, the attack on Akal Takht. And when that happened, it changed the life of our entire family in several ways. One, it made us aware that, hey, there's something going on that we are connected to that we had no idea we were connected to. My whole family was cut hair. And like I said, we don't go to Gurdwara or anything, but something was happening here. And we also noticed there was a distancing from some of our other Indian friends. The other families started to distance themselves from us. And we spend a lot of time now listening to shortwave radio, listening to BBC, watching CNN, trying to figure out what's going on there. And we started to see some of the old footage. 60 Minutes ran the interview with Sanjanal Singh Pindrawale, and we're listening to that and we're thinking, okay, what's happening here? What's going on? And interestingly enough, kind of reconnecting now after many years, but after 84, because of what was going on there, we ended up meeting Gursev Singh and his father. They came and stayed at our house for about a year in 1986, and that was a tremendous influence because now we were here getting a daily exposure of Sikh philosophy, hearing Nitnem Banis, learning Kirtan, and it was starting to take its effect on our family. What happened after that was basically we started going to smagams, we started going to camps. We actually helped at the camp that we used to do in Princeton, the SRC camps. I know some of the people here used to attend that too. But we came across a lot of people, like Jivan Singh Ji, Johnny Ji. I got to spend a lot of time with Johnny Ji at Sikh camps. That was actually very influential in my teen years. I was 13, 14, 15 years old at these times. And I was just starting to keep my hair, and I was testing it out. Not really sure I wanted to do it for real. So when I was 16, I kind of started making this more of a commitment. And later on, got involved with various people, smagams, listening to lots of kirtan, pretty much cut out all other music in our lives and just focused on kirtan, the whole concept, garbage in, garbage out. And I think that started to make a change, right? It started to make me think differently about, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I was pre-medical, didn't go into medicine, started doing computer science, never really finished computer science, but I was good at making graphics and websites and things like that. And in 1996, created an alter ego, you can call it, the NetNihung. And the NetNihung was very actively involved making Sikh websites. Probably the most famous one is akj.org. This was version 4.0. This is the oldest one I could find. The original ones that we put out in 96, 97, or 97 actually, were completely different. And one of the significant things which I always find fascinating now that I look back is we were one of the first people to start using MP3s for audio files, because real audio was the standard at that time. And everybody's getting mad at me, like, Mandheer, stop doing these MP3 files, they're too big, nobody can download them, because everybody had to dial in with their modems and stuff like that. But I kept pushing it because I was like, no, this is the next big thing. I know this is going to be it. Forget this real audio stuff, you know? So we started doing stuff like that, and I want to spend more and more time taking these kinds of graphic design talents, recordings and converting and things like that, and do something with it. So that's where that came about. Okay, so that takes you basically through the 90s. Okay, so I'm going to consider us caught up now. Now you know a little bit about me. All right, what I'm going to talk about today, though, is my friend AMAR. And I know that's kind of hard to read probably in here, but it says, in the amazing battle that made him into one of the greatest warriors of all time. All right. Now, in order to tell you about the story of AMAR, I have to stop again and give you an explanation of what this is not going to be in some of the key concepts. So I'm not a Kathavachik. I don't have a lot of gyan on Gurbani. I don't know a lot of Sakhis that I can share with you and impress you with, so it's not that. I'm also not an academic. Okay, I haven't studied this stuff and that I can put everything together and make all the best arguments or anything like that. So please just understand that I'm just sharing things that I've learned, and maybe things that I haven't really fully implemented myself. I don't consider myself an expert on them, but it's stuff that I've learned and I'm going to share. What I'm also trying not to do is take the concept of Waheguru or Sikhi and put it in a box. Okay, because I don't want to define a lot of things for you. This group is pretty diverse. Other times I've spoken to people, we've had huge diversity in our groups, and concepts like Naam and Shabad and things like that can be vastly different amongst people. So I'm not going to get into some of those concepts as I go through this. But one of the key concepts I want to talk about is how Waheguru and Satguru and the Guru are interchangeable. Obviously, when we say the Gurus were one with Waheguru, we are clearly talking about some kind of equality there, that they're equivalent. But it depends on the context. And sometimes in Shabad, the word Satguru can be referring to Waheguru itself, like Satgur Parmeshwar Mera, Anak Raj Bhog Rasmani, Naam Japi Parvasa Tera. So in this Shabad, clearly Satguru is referring to Waheguru. Other times, Satguru can be referred to as the Guru. Like Satgur Data Har Naam Ka, Prab Aap Milave Soy, Satgur Har Prab Bujya, Gurjevad Avarna Koi. Now, you might want to argue or discuss or whatever that this is a matter of interpretation, and I totally accept that. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to take it as if the Satguru is the giver of Waheguru's Naam. Satgur Data Har Naam Ka. They're being referenced separately. And Prab Aap Milave Soy, that Waheguru is the one that introduces you to the Satguru. And the Satguru totally, completely, deeply understands what Waheguru is. And there's nobody greater than the Guru. Okay, this is how I'm interpreting this Shabad for the purpose of this presentation. So some concepts, and this is going to probably overlap with other presentations that are coming, and definitely with Satpal Ruji's from earlier. But the idea of Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, the Atma, our soul, and maybe the word soul isn't a great word for it, but just go with me, you know. And then what the mind is. And in this diagram, what I'm trying to show is that the mind and Atma are what make us our individual beings. But that mind is that barrier that's keeping our Atma from being merged into the Paramatma. Okay? And to kind of zoom in on what that was, I tried to make this as clear as I could, but that's Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar. Those are all part of that wall that creates that barrier between Atma and Paramatma. But the Guru is something that can pierce through that man, that pierces through the mind. Like the Shabad, Antar Pyas Uti Prab Keri, Sun Gur Bachan Mantir Lagaya. Listening to the Guru's words, listening to the Guru's bachan, it can pierce your mind and connect you, your Atma, to Paramatma. Okay, so these are the main key concepts that I want to talk about. Oh yeah, finally, the Guru is giving you tools to defeat this man, to destroy this man. I'm using the example of arrows, that now you can from inside destroy that barrier, and that barrier disappears and you merge with the Waheguru. Now, there is a Shabad, which pretty long Shabad. I'm not going to get into translating or discussing the details now. We could talk about it later sometime. But the Kyon Lije Gad Banka Pai is by Kabirji. And it's basically saying that this body is a beautiful fortress. And the Shabad goes on to talk about how the rebel king, the man, is sitting inside and he has his guards. The Panch Chor are the guards. And it talks about the double wall of the fortress, the duality that we live in, that there's 3 moats surrounding it. And the moats represent different phases of Maya. And then how Dukh and Sukh are guarding the doors. And Pap and Pun are standing in the window. Like, it gives all these examples of all the barriers that are in the way and how amazing the general of Ahankar is and how well versed he is in running his army, and how difficult it is to destroy it. But in the Shabad, we get basically a Nam bomb, that using Nam, in one shot you can destroy the whole fortress. Okay? So, using those concepts, let's get to the story. So this is Amar. He's the hero of my story here. Now, Amar is a pretty average guy, probably a lot like us, a lot like a lot of people we know. Loves to travel, experience new things, and considers himself a spiritual person. He's a good husband, a great father, an honest entrepreneur, homeowner, and likes to do volunteer work. Okay, so I think a lot of us can relate to this. And I think most of us, how many are still in high school here? Okay, and how many are just starting college? And how many are working now, professionally? Yeah, okay. So I think in general, you can translate, if it's not work, it's school, okay? Now, in his travels, he travels the world, and he loves to do this. Like once a year, every summer, he gets a bug in him that I gotta go. But overall, his life is pretty great. Because when he travels, he does meditation, he goes and visits places that are known for their yoga and their meditative practices. And when he comes home, he's got a great wife at home, you know, he's got a nice house, he takes care of it, he pays his bills, his kids and his job, everything is going well. But over time, it weighs on him, right? The bills start to weigh on him, his relationship starts to weigh on him, and all of a sudden he starts to feel stressed and he gets angry and he's sick of meeting deadlines and, you know, all kinds of things just going on constantly, and it weighs on him and it gets him irritated, and he starts to feel like, you know, I need to become that spiritual person again. So he jumps on an airplane and travels to spiritual places and does his spiritual practices, trying to find a way to relieve these stresses. But the cycle keeps continuing. After he does his meditations and travels, comes back, his relationship with his wife is good, he's on top of his house, his kids are doing good, his work goes well. Over time, it starts to weigh on him, starts to feel stressed out, he travels, and it just keeps going and going. Years and years went this way. Okay, but one time, when he was on his trip, he met another fellow spiritual person, and just to distinguish him, you know, a funny mark on his head, I'm going to call him Harry Potter. He's got a little lightning bolt on his head. So he meets Harry Potter, and they start traveling together, okay? They're going to all the places, and they're doing all their spiritual practices together. And one day they're sitting there eating, and Harry Potter finds out, talking to Amar, he says, hey, who's your guru? And Amar says, what are you talking about? What do you mean guru? He goes, what? You don't even have a guru? And he's like, why? What's wrong with that? He's like, I have to clean myself now. I have to cleanse myself. I can't sit here and meet and eat and drink and spend all this time with someone who has no guru. And Amar's like, what the hell, man? Like I did do something wrong. I'm trying to do the same thing this guy's trying to do. So he starts to think about this and he's like, what am I going to do? So he's like, okay, I'm just going to go home. And he's thinking about this and it's dwelling in his head, like how he got treated by this guy and how rude he was and what's wrong? What's the big deal? I'm doing all the same things he's doing. What's the big deal? So he starts thinking about it. He's like, does he have a point though? Do I need to have a guru to find salvation? So as he's flying back from India, he looks out his window and he sees what looks awfully like a 4K drone video footage of Darbar Sahib. And he decides, hey, I think I need to go there. So he jumps out of his seat and he runs up the aisle and he starts banging on the cockpit door. He's like, you gotta open up, get out. You gotta land this airplane right now, right now. And people are watching him and the pilot goes, okay, fine, let's take him to Darbar Sahib. So he lands the plane and lets him off the airplane. Okay, so Amar goes inside and he's listening and he hears a Bibi doing kirtan, and this is my story. Brown Bibi are allowed to do kirtan at Darbar Sahib in my story, okay? And she's doing Shabad, Paya Manur Kanchan Fir Hove, Jay Gur Mile Taneha. He starts thinking about that. He's like, hey, this is the same thing Harry Potter told me, that I gotta have a guru. Harry Potter was rude about it, but he's listening to the Shabad and he liked the sound of it, and he's like, maybe there's something to this. And now it starts going through his head. Okay? So, at this point, let's just stop and reflect for a second. I just want to ask, what do you think is so significant in Amar's life? Even though he's spiritual and he's searching, what is this idea that popping into his head that he needs a guru? And is it important? Can he just jump nam without a guru? Anybody? Anybody have an opinion on it? Hanji? Okay, he needs guidance, okay. Somebody else?
Yeah, same thing. So, someone to connect him with Wagyu, like a
okay.
path.
But he's already doing all this stuff, right? So he needs something more?
Needs to know what's truth.
Okay, that's good. I like that. He needs to know what's the truth so he knows what he's doing is helping or not. Yeah.
I think it's temporary. He's doing. He goes back and does the whole thing again, and he's looking for more assistance, right? Where he does it.
You want to know right technique?
So he doesn't fall back.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point too, because we noticed he was in this cycle, right? So it works for a little while, it wears off, he goes and recharges his battery. How many times have you guys heard that? I want to go to Smagam to recharge my battery. We say that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Is it something that fades? Should it be fading? Then if it's fading for us and we need a recharge, what's wrong with what we're doing? Somebody else had a hand up over here? Anya.
It's just a vicious circle that, a person tries to get out of it, but because of the Kaljug and because it's the cars still keep on coming back to us, and whenever we are in the Sangat, we are okay, but then whenever we are out of that circle, right, Ram, Lakshman, Rekha, out of the Sangat, then again the cars attack us and we are again back in that situation.
So that's a very good point. And I know Satpalji earlier mentioned also that why are we going out, right? I mean, here, the Shabad, I know it can be interpreted two ways, but I'm accepting both interpretations. That Hirde Naam Visayo Kar Baithe Guru Te Aayo. That one idea is you don't have to go off other places. You can stay home and put your attention to Waheguru. But I also accept the higher spiritual definition that the house that Guru Sahib is referring to is this body, and they're not necessarily staying home. But I think they both work, that you don't have to go looking elsewhere. And I think that's very significant. Was there another hand up somewhere? Yes.
I personally think that he would need a guru because he's already created a goal that salvation is his goal, and he himself is not enlightened. So he needs someone that is enlightened to take him in that same light.
Okay, that's good. I also tend to believe that when you are genuinely trying something that is on the right path, that Waheguru also interjects and puts things on the right path. Hanji.
ਮੇਰਾ ਇਹ ਮੰਨਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਉਪਲਬਧੀ ਹੰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੀ
Okay, that's good.
ਹੈ। ਜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਲਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨੇ ਬਸ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਪਾਤਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣ ਸਕਦੇ।
Okay, I like that's a good point too. Hanji.
I think from our morning workshop, what resonates with me is I want someone who's been there, seen that, tasted it, seen it. Then I want to talk to that person. Then that's what my experience.
So how do you find that kind of person? I mean, I'm asking that. I know we all have already accepted that Guru Granth Sahib Ji is that for us, but how would somebody find, like Amar, like how would he have found it otherwise? You know, so I think that's also something to reflect on. Yes.
I think I'm not sure if this is in Gurbani or something, but like my dad used to tell me that matlab koi cheez badhiya bhi karta hai, it is not accepted. Like
Right.
that is something that he used to mention. कि मतलब it does not matter if you सच्चे मानना कर रहे हो, अगर तो गुरु की guidance नहीं है तो it is not accepted.
Okay. I think in that case we get into things like the Nasa Devara comes up, right? If you can do all the good deeds you want, but if you're doing it without Nam, then it has no ultimate value. Okay, anything else anybody else want to mention before I move forward? Okay. All right, so part 2 of my story now. Things have started to happen, okay? Amar's been paying more attention to what the Guru is saying because he liked that, hearing that Shabad. And some changes started taking place inside of him and on outside of him. So, this fits in with the theme Shabad, by the way. Gurbani sun mail, what is it? Gurbani sun mail gavai. So I think the idea that listening to the Guru's words and kind of dwelling on them and sitting with them, like taking time with them, that change that comes from inside starts to reflect itself on the outside. It's similar to the Shabad that Nanak Vaisakhi Prab Pave. And that Shabad, the Guru Sahib talks about how Vaisakhi is Waheguru's favorite time of year because that's how you can identify the trees. Their leaves come out. And that's what happened with the Khalsa. The Khalsa was the leaves of the tree of the Guru coming out. So you can identify who the Khalsa was. So now he starts thinking about that Shabad more and more. Paya manur kanchan fir hove, jay gur mile taneha. And it takes him to other Shabads like Gur paras hamlo mil kanchan hoya ram. And the more time he sits with these Shabads, he starts to feel like I need to do what the Guru is saying. So Gur Satgur ka jo sikha khai so palke ut har naam te aave. He's like, okay, I need to get up early and jap naam. Naam te aave. Now, we can argue whether Amrit Vela palke utna means 3 o'clock in the morning or if it just means getting up at any time, you know, because what if you work the night shift? That's the argument you always hear. I think the idea of like, so palke ut har naam te aave, whatever time you need to be at work or school, you got to get up earlier than that comfortably and spend your time preparing yourself for your day through Simran, through Bani. So that's what Amar started doing. And as he did that, as he would sit and do Simran and repeat Waheguru, 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 and do the Mool Mantra and the Nitname, he started to feel something even deeper. And that led him to doing more seva, because he started to feel like, okay, let me go do seva where the Guru is. Let me do the seva at the Guru's place, not necessarily so that people can have a clean Gurdwara, but because it belongs to the Guru, and he wants the Guru's impression to be a good one. And he starts to realize some more changes in his outward appearance. Starts doing Langar Seva regularly for the sake of the Guru and the blessings of the Sangat. He's not making judgments about who's coming and making the place dirty, who's asking for more food, who made these plates dirty. He's not thinking about any of that because it has nothing to do with any of that. His seva is to the Guru. So his reflections that he starts to have start to get deeper. And he starts to compare how he thinks. I am Amar, to Mantu Jot Sarup hai apna mool pachan. Okay, he says, I must provide for my family, Jinopaya Medni Soy Kardasar. That whoever's made this whole thing is the one that gets everything done. So he starts slowly replacing his manmat with gurmat, is what he's doing. And this goes back again to things that we're going to talk about more in the other workshops and today. You know, that how do you lose your own identity? How do you lose who you are and break that barrier? In doing so, his family relationship is much more calm and regular and sustained and happy. His work, people at work start coming up to him and saying, hey, I noticed you changed a lot and you seem a lot more happy now. You don't seem stressed out. What are you doing? I have this situation at home. My friend is going through this thing. And they start going to him for advice because they start to look at him and go, this guy's happy. How is he happy? So at this point, just stop to reflect on what happens when you replace manmat with gurmat. And interject anything you want. If you have questions about any of it or you want to say anything in particular, that's fine. But what happens when you start consciously making a decision that I'm going to set aside what I'm thinking about something and go to the Guru? And I'll give you some examples that we do all the time. When we read Gurbani, we often read it through the lens of our own biases. You know, like if you want to say that the only thing that you ever have to do is Simran and everything else is BS, you will go to Gurbani and you can find a tuk that supports what you're saying. And if you want to go and say, no, you have to do more, you have to do everything the Guru says, you got to take Amrit and stuff, you will find Gurbani tuks that support your argument. And this happens with people that eat meat and are vegetarian all the time. And sometimes they use the same tuk when they're arguing because they're looking at it from a different lens. And I would challenge you, no matter what you believe from whoever you've learned it from throughout your life, when you read Guru Granth Sahib, when you read Gurbani, when you read Guru Gobind Singh's Bani, read it from a pure, objective point of view. It's really, really difficult to do, and you will find yourself constantly doing that because you might want to say, oh, well, everybody always taught me that Gurmukhs are good and Manmukhs are bad. And then you're going to go to Gurbani and say, well, Guru Sahib's not really saying maybe that. Maybe Guru Sahib is just telling us being Gurmukh makes you happier and being a Manmukh makes you suffer. But you have to have that open-mindedness to read Gurbani and really look at it and reflect on it. Any comments or questions? Is everybody wondering what happened to Amar? Yeah.
So I like the Amar story, obviously, and I love that he banged on the door and went to Bhai Mandheer Singh without that even having gone there. But what was that space and time that he came to the Guru? How did that happen for him? And how does that happen for each one of us? There's a token, it comes in many forms in Asayar as well. This thought that we don't go to the Guru. The Guru comes to us. And that is Har Naam Nidan hai. Shabad ki anda hai. Jintul mastak likhya tina sadgur milya aaye. If you have this written in your karma, your forehead, in your blessings, in your path, Jintur mastak likhya. If it's written on your forehead, or the metaphor is that if you were blessed through your past kirpa, your actions and whatnot, then the Satguru will himself come and reveal himself. So that part is also probably Amar nu kise ne kya bhi tu Harry Potter ne kehta bhi tu tera guru nahi hai unu 60 waj jeete he thought bhi main karan.
Right.
But that part was itself the kirpa of the Guru.
Right.
That he was doing all these good things and he's trying his best as a householder and all of that. But then Satguruji at some point said, no, he needs to come closer. He's doing a lot of stuff, but so he directed him to say, you've come to this world and taken a birth. So how does that happen for us, that we may be struck by that, and then Vani starts revealing itself? As we say, and as Mandheer Singh is saying, that when we read Gurbani, try a different lens, not only the lens that you heard it from someone Katha, or you first understood it. There's one other lens which strikes a lot of us, and that's the lens of love. When you sing Kirtan with love, just for yourself, and obviously in Sangat as well, Bani starts revealing itself. And the first time I heard of this was from Sant Tattvik Singh Ji's Jeevani, in which Sant Teja Singh Ji writes that the Gursikh came and said, I don't understand the meaning of Gurbani, I should read some translation. He says, forget the translation, just read Gurbani with love and Gurbani will reveal itself. And I thought to myself, wow, how can that really happen? Because we use Sikh Max a lot. I learned from Sikh Max a lot and so on in translation. But at some points, Bani, the same shabdas that I've read many times, I'm sitting alone in Granth Sahib's room and it strikes me in such amazing ways. That's never struck me. The meanings come out way different and deeper. And so Sadhguru is revealing himself to us or coming and meeting us. And that thought comes to us a number of times, but it's something to reflect on. Do we go and take Amrit, or does Guru Sahib pull us to it? Or
Right.
is it a two-phase sort of thing happening where what we're doing is being led by the Guru and then Guru gives us Uddam to do action. We do the actions, we have more kirpa.
The Charan Sharan Gur Ek Penda Jai Chal Satgur Kot Penda Aage Hoy Le, that kind of concept. I think also what you hit on, the karams, the idea of karams. Now, often in Gurbani you're going to see lines too where Pap and Pun are being treated the same. And that can be kind of confusing too, because are Pap and Pun the same? Other places Gurbani is telling us that your Paps are getting washed away and all you will have is Sukh, right? So how can Pap and Pun be the same? Does anybody have any ideas on that maybe? Or are they? Or do you just reject the idea that Pap and Pun are treated the same? Because I think this goes back to Gursavier Ji's point about how you meet the Satguru. Hanji.
I think Pop and Pun, from what I understood, Pop and Pun are a level that Gurmukhs are above. For them, Pop and Pun, like obviously they don't indulge in Pop, or they don't go for, like Guru Sahib says, Karam, all these actions we do as Pun, they're useless if we don't have Naam. So I think Gurmukhs, they rise above Pop and Pun, and they are higher status. Turiya Padre, they go above the three.
Yeah.
Rajagotam.
Rajagotamagan, yeah.
And the Token Padajandi, right? So that's what I feel over here.
Yeah, I think building off of that, Naam is a thing. Okay, so Dukh and Sukh, Pap and Pun, these are external things. Okay, they're things that our body experiences, our mind experiences. So that's how they're similar. And in what you building off of what you just said, Naam is the kind of thing that deletes Paps and Puns, because someone who is getting Jivana Mukti doesn't take birth in the cycle of birth and death. So Puns help you build karams, and those good karams help you meet a Satguru. Your Paps keep you from meeting a Satguru. And when your Puns are higher than your Paps, you get lucky, you get a human life, and you meet the Satguru. So that's the role they play. But doing Naam erases them all because you're not coming back. Right? So you've, like you said, you've transcended now these levels of Maya. So does that make sense? Or does somebody disagree with what I just said? It's okay if you do. I'm not right about this. I told you I don't know this stuff. I'm just sharing what I've heard. Yes.
Could you actually go over Naam a little bit?
Okay, I purposely was not doing that. Because first of all, I don't know. I don't do Naam. I don't think I do Naam. I don't know. Naam is interpreted so many different ways. Some people are going to tell you Naam is you go to Panchpari, they're going to give you a technique to do. You go back home and you sit there for hours using that technique and something will happen. Other people are going to tell you, no, you can just read Gurbani and delve into Gurbani, do Vichar with Gurbani, and that Naam you'll be feeling that Naam effect out of Gurbani. Other people are going to tell you just walk around nature and look at the trees and you're going to see Waheguru in all the creation, and that's Naam also. I'm just going to say Naam is the answer. I can't interpret that for you. And I think that's important too. Like, you should be on your own journey looking for what that answer is. You should be going to the Guru and saying, Guru Sahib, what is Naam? And asking for it. Yes.
So like whatever we have, karma phala, like it is based on our previous karma, right? At the same time, we have no choice in the sense that like Jagat bas tamasha and like God tamasha basically, and we are just players in the game.
Yeah, this is the concept of free will versus destiny, right? Okay, let me give you something to think about. Again, these are not answers. Don't take these are just thought-provoking things. Free will and destiny are opposing forces, right? Either you have the free will to do whatever you want, or it's predetermined by Waheguru and you're just acting on it. If I asked you today, build me a room and all 4 walls need to face south, is that possible? Is that even possible? To build a room where all 4 walls are facing south? Because this idea of predetermined life and free will is a matter of perspective. Does anybody think it's possible to build a house with 4 walls facing south?
It depends which side of the wall you're talking about.
No, same size. I'm standing in my room. I built it. I'm facing this wall. It's south. I turn around and face that wall and it's south. Is that possible? It's a matter of perspective. If it's on the North Pole, all walls face south. Even though it seems like to us, when we don't have the perspective, that it's impossible. Free will and destiny are beyond our understanding. We don't have that perspective. Guru Sahib had that perspective, and Guru Sahib told us, Uddam karo, karavo thakur. So make an effort, and Waheguru will get it done. Didn't say Waheguru is going to do the effort and just do it through you, right? So maybe it's possible. It's something to think about. Maybe free will and predetermined destiny is possible at the same time when you have Guru Sahib's perspective.
You have to do the better.
No,
That's again kind of, you know.
that's a little bit different, right? Because that's the point is, I'm doing things, I'm doing my actions, and those karams are either good deeds or bad deeds. And whatever things I'm doing, I have to reap what I've sowed. So if I take an action from my will, there is a predetermined destiny of that action.
No, but there comes a point we were discussing before that why Guru is needed. Then Guru Sahib tells you which karams to do. He tells you Sarvan Har.
Yeah, and that goes back to Guru Saviorji's thing that when you do those good karams, you will meet the Satguru will present himself to you. Himself, whatever. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Yes. A little bit louder, I can't hear.
We're also assuming with free will and stuff like that, that Guru Sahib is in time, that everything has been determined from some point or even in the past and everything in the future. You can think, God, like all work is outside of time, so you can think that he's almost like, decisions are being made all the time, which is not necessarily what's predetermined or something like that. Everything we're doing is also having an effect. That's another perspective as well.
Yeah, and
It's not just like,
I'll throw something else out that I don't believe this, okay? But let me just throw it out because I've talked to other Sikhs who argue this point. But it's something to think about. And like I said, when you go to Gurbani, try not to go with this idea that I believe in free will or destiny or whatever. But I've talked to some people that say, look, those karams that play out happen in this one chance you got. That's why it's such a rare gift. When you die, you die. If you can do what you can to meet Waheguru is fine. And the idea of 84 lakh June is actually the process of evolution. We've evolved through all these life forms to get to this human life form, and we're not taking advantage of what kind of being we've become. I find that a little hard to swallow myself, but at least it made me stop and think, okay, why don't I believe that? And kind of think about, is there something wrong in my thought process? Is there something I'm misinterpreting that the Guru is saying? So there are many ways people can interpret things. Just try to do it for yourself and try to be consistent. Hanji.
We all here today, right? Is it free will or predetermined?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that. I say it's both. It's probably both somehow. It's our karmas playing out, which our karmas are playing out from some of the choices we've made, and it's Waheguru's will.
But I think in that case, it's 15th body from Jagji Sahib, Panch Parvan, Panch Pradhan, Panche Bhagavan, and it's like Sabna likhya badi kalam. A likha likh jana koi, likha likhya keta hoy. So it's already written out.
No. See that again. The finer point there is that those things that are being written are your deeds, whether they're spot purple, but when you do Nam, it gets erased. So there is nothing more being written, right? So those things have to play out. The things that you planted the seed, ape bij ape hikal, right? We say that means they planted the seed, and then whatever seed you planted, you've got to see that to the end. That is the predetermined.
Guru Tegh Bahadur ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਗੁਣ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਗਾਇਓ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਨਮ ਆਕਾਰ ਤਕੀਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਦੋਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ.
So exactly. So you can come up with many examples, and you'll find you can argue both sides of these things. Okay. So, but it's to make you think. It's not necessarily to have an answer. Hanji.
I was just alluding to this point. I think the invitation to come to the camp is your gift from the Guru, and the part that you're coming here is your karma. So if you wouldn't have accepted, the gift is already there for you. So ਭਾਗ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਿਖ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆ, and ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਮਲ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ, then it becomes zero. So that's just the I feel that's the way I
ਬਾਕੀ ਪਰਸਪੈਕਟਿਵ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ 6 ਦਿਖਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ 9 ਹੋਊਗਾ.
That's true. That's true. Perspective also matters. Hanji.
Sorry, I just wanted to add into what you were saying. जिथे आपजी ने क्या सबना लिखा बड़ी कलाम, is it okay if I take 1 minute to?
Yeah, absolutely. We have time.
ਤਿੰਨ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਮ ਮੰਨੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ. One is ਸੰਚਿਤ ਕਰਮ, one is ਕਿਰਿਆਮਾਨ ਕਰਮ, one is ਪਰਾਲਬਧ ਕਰਮ. Bhai Daya Singh ji in Sur Prakash Granth, the Gursikhs came up to Bhai Daya Singh from Panj Pyare and they asked him the same question. They said, help us understand what karmas mean. Is anything inside of our hands or is it outside of our hands? On one side you say, Sade hath vich kuch nahi hai. On the other side you say, Apan hathi apana ape hi kaaj sawari hai. Is it in within our hands or is it not? Explain us these karmas. Bhai Daya Singh ji, he takes one arrow from his quiver and he says, these arrows are my sanchit karam, meaning these ones I've acquired. They're attached with me. They're attached with my home. These ones I have not used yet, but they're with me. The second type of karam, he pulls out the arrow, puts it on his bow, and he says, these are my kiryaman karams. These ones are within my control. I can choose which way to shoot this arrow. I can shoot it at that enemy,
Right.
or I can shoot it at my own friend. So, but that's within my control, and I have power over that. Oh, main apna hathi apna ape hi kar sware. Now, once I let go of that arrow, once the arrow is flying through the air, I don't have control over it. Even if I shoot that arrow and I change my mind after,
Right. Right.
even then the arrow is going to go, it's going to hit, and jira os cheez da phal milna hai, whatever consequence or whatever fruit you're going to get out of that, that's going to turn into a karam, and it's going to end up back in your sanchit karam because you've attached it to yourself. So this concept of let me just do good actions, that only makes you acquire good karmas. It doesn't get rid of the karmas like Paji is saying. There's only one thing that can burn karmas. If you do good actions, you receive good actions. If you do bad actions, you receive bad actions. But Nam burns actions. When you shot all your arrows and you have no arrows left to shoot, then it's Avan jana hukum tiseka, hukum hai bujj samavenge, bahod hum kahi avenge. Then why would you need to come back onto this world again? Because you have nothing left to attach yourself on.
Right.
That's Bhai Daya Singh explaining this. Just I thought I'd add.
No, that's great. I love that. That's great. Anybody else? Hanji.
Coming back to the original point, all those curves we can, it's predetermined but also could be changed by doing now. But eventually the ultimate goal of ending up emerging with the goal happens only with good prasad.
Right.
That is not in our hands. That we have to keep trying or do our best, but the ultimate thing is going to happen with good prasad.
Right. No, I agree. And how do you get the Guru's grace? How do you get good prasad?
That's what we have to keep working towards.
And I think this is a good point to also mention. You saw the changes that Amar was going through, right? We were talking about identities earlier. Identity can also be the idea of becoming identical to something. And in this case, the Guru. So as we adopt Gurmat, our thinking is changing into the Guru's thinking. Our natural actions become Guru-like. They become like the actions the Guru would do. Okay, so that's important too. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to do what Guru Sahib did, and expect to get that if you haven't changed this. Because you might be doing it out of ego to show that, hey, I'm the best Sikh. But if your mat is changing from manmat to gurmat, and I think also Satpal Virji made a good point earlier too. He made some great points earlier actually. But one idea is which direction you're facing. Are you facing the Guru, Gurmukh? It's not, Gurmukh isn't a status you attain. Or are you facing your mind, Manmukh? You might be at the same spot facing different directions, right? Which way are you facing? Because we're not perfect. But as we face the right direction and adopt the Guru's thinking, thoughts become actions. Actions have results. Our results will become the results that the Guru expects for us. The Guru was here as an example for us, right? They lived the life that they wanted us to live. So the idea of identity is being identical to the Guru. It's not just that, oh, this is who we are. We have, Panch Kakars now, and now we go out in the world and everybody knows who the Sikhs are. It's we're adopting this because it makes us more like the Guru. That's why when Sikhs see each other, we get excited, because we see the Guru in each other. This is the Guru's Sarup. It's not ours. It's a gift from the Guru. It's our wedding band to the Guru. Okay, any other comment? Hanji.
Really interesting discussion here about karam, tukaram, pun, pap, and so on. What came to my mind that I'll share is firstly, Japji Sahib Ji Maharaj कहते हैं, पर ये मत पापों के संग फूट होता है. If our mind is filled with the sins and actions of those sins, then we can wash that dirt with the rang of Naam, the color of Naam. Naam Japna brings about a color, which is to Bani, Simran, nature, everything is Naam. Gita, Kita, Tisa, Naam. Whatever we see is Naam. Whatever we don't see is all Naam. And if we have the color of Naam comes to Sat Sangat and so on, then the sins wash away. But he does say again in that same 40, Maharaji says, Punni papi akhnanai. Don't think this is just for saying there's pun and pap. There is action and there's reaction. There's a fruit you get from it. Punni papi akhnanai kar karna likhla jao. Ape di, ape. Whatever you do, you have to, if you sow it, you sow karma, you reap that. But duja ek thought jehda hai bani jai karta purkh. Sat Naam, in this whole creation, only Naam is true. Nothing else is true. What we see here, only that being of Naam, which is true all of us, is true. So karta purkh ka hai, he is a doer because none other exists. मैं कोई गुरमुख मैंने टोरंटो ना समागम अपने नगर कीर्तन में जैसी तो मैं बुजुर्ग सीखे मैं फतेह आई मैं कहा को बचन सुनाओ. So I said I'll ask him of the pind and this that. It won't take me much far. But if I ask him about the bachan of Sadhguru कोई चीज मिल जाएगी. And he revealed to me in just a minute one thought which grew amazingly in my thought process over the next year or two. He said Ek Omkar means there is only one. Doesn't mean there's one God.
Right.
It means there is only one. In this creation, there is none other than that one. There is only one. So whatever we see is only one. And Guru Sahib is taking us from anek hai to ek hai. From many that he has made in this creation back to one. In that creation, as we start through Naam, the Chotha Pad, which we said as well, and you get to the Chotha Pad, or the fourth stage where you shed the Tingun Maya, then you start realizing that Mandheer Singh Ji is not talking. I'm not talking, but Satguru is talking. Mandheer Singh Ji is not doing Updesh or teaching, and we're not students, but it's Vaheguru Ji is talking, and Vaheguru Ji is questioning, Vaheguru Ji is learning. And that's why he says, Ape Chart Sal, Ape Pada, Ape Chakade Pranavane. He is the teacher, he is the student, he is the Sevadar and making langar, he is the one eating the langar. Ape Pande De Prose, Ape Bekhave. So when we come to that stage, then he says, Jan Nanak Lekha Samjha, Dharmalaja Kagat Phade, Jan Nanak Lekha Samjha. When we get to the fourth stage, understand Karta Purkh Vaheguru hai, that means if there is only Vaheguru, and this is all Vaheguru, then who are we? We are Vaheguru. So any action we do, good or bad, ko ape karanda hai. He makes us do good and bad actions. Bani is bahut tuka aandi hain. Main nahi, sab kuch tera. I am nothing, everything is yours. And when I start realizing the Oi hai, then Oi karya karam. That means whatever action we do, actually we don't do because we don't exist. As we exist as a wave in the ocean, we think we are it, and then the game is there, and then the Papun has action-reaction. But once you realize we are Vaheguru, and we are the ocean, we're not no longer the bubble, there is no action-reaction, then you're above it, and Naam is as what? Or
There's a couple of things I want to comment there. One, on the final part there, it's one thing to know something, and it's one thing to truly realize it. Because we know a lot of things. We understand the concept that, and often I do the same thing. Ikonkar, it translates God is one, continuous, unbroken throughout the creation. And then when Sat Nam, Sat, okay, give me a definition of Sat. What does Sat mean?
true.
True. Everybody's saying true. Anybody disagree with that?
It also means
Eternal?
constant.
Constant. What else?
It also means essence.
It means what? Essence?
All the base core.
The core? Okay. I like the word constant for one reason. Eternal is a good one too. Constant gives the impression that it never changes. It never changes. The things that we call kur, the false, quote, we use the word false because that's our English translation of it. That's a bad word too. Temporary is a better word. It distinguishes what is true, constant, from the things that are temporary. That's why we call it an illusion, because it's coming and going. Doesn't mean it's not real or that we can't experience it. I might be going too far into my own interpretations of this, but the idea is that something that is sat is true because it never changes. Things that are temporary are false because they come and go. We think this body is mine, right? But it's not. It's coming and going. It's all just dirt. And another way to look at it is we're constantly being recycled back into the creation, right? We talked about today, like when you die, what happens? I mean, you're made up of these billions of cells and bacteria that are in your gut. That's all part of you being alive. You know, there's still something happening there. There's still life there, even though you are dead, and it gets recycled back into its creation and becomes something else. So those things are coming and going. That's why we call them false. That's why we call it an illusion. We attach ourselves to it thinking that's real. That's my house. That house is going to crumble someday. But Ikonkar doesn't crumble. Ikonkar is constant and doesn't change over time. Eternal. So, but what I was getting at with that was, it's one thing to know something, it's a different thing to truly realize it. So sometimes we want to act and take actions thinking we understand something, and that can be dangerous because we're still on our journey. Okay, just two more quick points before I move on. Oh, yeah.
So, as Guru Sahib walks us in this journey to the inside, right? While we're walking, it unfolds while we're walking. So what we're saying now is going to be different while you're inside. And the deeper you go, it's going to change there too. So,
if I could just add to that, you've got Sabna Likha Budi Kalam. That's not etched in stone, right? It's actually ever flowing. So even if you're talking about karma, Guru is such a entity. They could override everything and anything.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
It doesn't make when you get into the realm of Guru and Pyar, it overrides Buddha. It overrides logic, right? That's more adhyatmic, right? It's Ruhani, like it's just a total different play, right? And that's when it's beyond, right? It's not something that we can quantify like this and this, because as it is so great, why he is so great, so is his play.
Yeah.
And the more we try and understand it and quantify it,
the heart,
the more you understand
yeah.
Like there is,
and I'm glad you pointed out, because I started with that too. I wanted to be careful not to get into boxing Waheguru into something, right? So understand Waheguru is all powerful and can do anything, anytime, and maybe doing it constantly. And as we're talking about this, the whole structure of the entire creation could be changing. So Waheguru is all powerful and can do anything. And the only way to change your karma is through ardas. You can do ardas to have your karmas changed. Otherwise, ape bij ape hi khao. Yeah.
Can I do anything, or is doing everything?
Well, no, I'm saying can do anything.
I want by doing everything.
I don't know what you mean by doing, because he is the doer of everything, yes. because he's the force, or he. I don't want to use the word he. Waheguru is the force behind everything that happens. Waheguru is permeated within the creation. So there's nothing without Waheguru. Things are happening, but it's all happening in Waheguru's hukum.
If I do something wrong, why do I get punished for it?
Okay, again, when we go back to the idea of duk and suk and pap and pun, you're saying, why do I get punished? What Guru Sahib is telling you, you will suffer from your own actions.
The action is not my action. Why we is it?
Guru Sahib just say, datta dos na do, kise ko dos karam maat banya.
That's exactly. Mera karm kidda ban gaya.
So at a certain level, it's ours. Hukmi uttam neech, hukum lekh duk sukh paiye, right? So at a certain level, if I'm playing this game, I have to play by the rules of this game. But Guru is such a Mahan Shakti that once he takes you and takes you to that fourth state that we talked about, right? Like in Anand Sahib said, Sinmarit Sastar Punna Paap Vichar De Tatta Sar Na Jani. There's something that's beyond that, and unless we were awake to that beyond, something that's beyond, right? It can't be, in my opinion, just a perspective, it can't be understood at an intellectual level. It can be experienced as Guru Tihi Guni Sansar Swami Sutta Satyara, right? Guru Kirpa Te Se Jan Gati. So when we're awakened to that, and our mind is suchet, right, to that fact, right, then it's like a total different game, total different set of rules. There are no rules. Once you get into the realm of Guru, Satguru, Waheguru, that's it. There's nothing I can say. And that's why the Guru Mantra, like when we talk about Guru Mantra, that's essentially it. When we get to a stage and all I have for you is wow. Got nothing more than that, got nothing less than that. That's the stage, right? Where you just, I got nothing for you. Well, that's it. That's it.
And just to kind of maybe a more practical explanation, because again, it's hard to intellectualize these things, it's hard to understand it, and we're just sharing what we know here. Whatever you do is done by the power that's given to you by Waheguru. It's the Waheguru power in you that takes whatever actions you take. But you are going to either suffer or benefit from those actions. Okay? So it's not that Waheguru is controlling you like a puppet and you're just going through life and doing whatever Waheguru puppeteers you into doing. The power to do anything is given to you by Waheguru. Now, you can take accountability and humble yourself and think, whatever bad is happening in my life is because of me, and whatever good is happening in my life is because of Waheguru. That puts you in a position where you'll be receptive to more of Guru's teachings. I think. There and then here.
So, whatever you're saying, if you do something bad, is it under the influence of Rajo, Tamar, or Sattva? Or do you realize who you really are? So that goes back to what Guruji was talking about today. The Gurbani de vich jinne vi shabd hai, Guru Sahib refers to the man. So that's a key point. The man is brainwashed to think it's something else which it isn't. And whatever the name you get, all the deeds, everything that's done, your last rites, sara kuch other people do. You're not doing it. But you're still holding on to this as it's you, but it's not you. So the man is like it's in the sandwich between Paramatma and then there's you, which is Paramatma de
Atma, right? Is your Atma and
Which
Paramatma.
man aa janda hai. So जिन्ना चर मन विचारां दे विच आ, उन्ना चर we're not gonna be able to go inside.
That shabad that Kyon Lije Gadabanka Pai that I was talking about earlier, it's a good shabad to like it's just a cool shabad. I mean, like literally describing this fortress, this body. And the idea of dukh and sukh being the guards at the door is because dukh and sukh are pain and pleasure. It's the experience we get from our senses. Whatever we experience through our senses have to go through those doors. And inside you have these layers of guards. and the king is your rebel mind. They call it the rebel mind because the king is sitting there defying everything and saying, I've got the most amazing fortress here that's going to protect me from anything except for Nam. And then you find that out in the Shabbat. But it's a really cool Shabbat. If you map it out and maybe even draw a picture of the fortress line by line, okay, here's the moats, here's the walls. It kind of gives you a visual impression of like, okay, this is, Kabirji in that Shabbat is actually describing how just impenetrable that beautiful fortress is, how amazing it is. And that's why it's so difficult to break. There in the, yeah. Oh, okay, so go ahead, then I'll go there.
We know that Manjada
Is it 5? Is it supposed to be done?
and we realize that and you're like you take a breather and you're like, oh, finally okay. You go 20 years you're doing it out of the sette par, yeah? It's not the pyar as we were talking about. Number two, where you've gone off and then you come back in the middle. So जिन्ना चेर आपां बाणी दा जाप करते हैं गुरमंत्र दा जाप करते हैं, is our mind there? Is it mindful or mindless? I think that's the Guru Sahib touches on this in every shop.
And there's a distinction that I'm making at least, and I think even in this discussion between Guru Sahib and Waheguru. Like Shabad Pule Marg Jine Bataya Asa Gur Vadpagi Paya. Right? That's the kind of guru that takes a okay, so when we say Vadpagi, that comes up a lot. How does that relate back to what we were talking about earlier? Right? The idea that you've done a lot of good karams and you have this great fortune. That's who the Vadpagi is that meets the guru, or that the guru saves. And then we're always on the wrong path, Pule Marg. And the guru is the one that saves us from that. Yeah. Hanji.
I think when I'm looking at the whole perspective of, we're having a discussion, then a Singh asks the question, but is God doing everything or can do everything? Why am I being punished for the actions? God is doing everything. It's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
And then Bhai Sahib explaining the, wait a moment, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੁਰੋਗੇ ਇਸ ਪਾਥ ਤੇ God will reveal himself and ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ revelation ਹੋਏਗੀ, ਗਿਆਨ ਆਏਗਾ, you realize ਵੀ what we understand is nothing. ਇੱਕ ਸੰਤ ਵਰਿਆਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, amazing ਗੁਰਮੁਖ is like ਪੁੱਜੇ ਹੋਏ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਹੈਗੇ. When he talks from experience. ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮਨਕੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ, what we think we know is not what it is. ਜੋ ਇਹ ਜਾਣੋ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਮਿੱਥਿਆ ਗਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ. What we are talking, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ experience ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦਾ, ਉਹ ਨਾਮ ਜਪ ਕੇ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਹੈ, ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਇਹਦਾ. ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਵੀ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਿੱਥਿਆ ਗਿਆਨ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸਲ ਗਿਆਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਨੁਭਵ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ wrote 630 pages ਦੀ translation, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ translation, I would do a perfect translation, write the whole thing, then I'd go deep in my Simran and realize that what I know, what I've written is all wrong. The real experience of Bani is when you are in that pyar, when you're in that samundar ocean of Naam, you dive deep in and you realize there's no explanation, and a deep explanation hai. So ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ question ਸੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ why am I being punished for this action if God is doing everything? The fact is that one perspective is if God is doing everything and this is all God, this is all Naam, then who are we? We are Naam. We're just bubbles on the ocean thinking we exist. And so our Home exists, and in that Home then the game starts. And the game is all started by Home. Because Maharaji says because of Home this world came into creation. And the Siddhs ask, Maharaji says, this creation came into being because of Home, Naam visar the fight. So when we forget that Naam exists, that constant of Naam exists, we are separated from the Naam, then our Home starts playing, and then whatever action I do, I suffer for it. But if I go back to Chautha Pad through Simran and Kumai and experience that one Vaheguru everywhere and see the Duja Nai Diko, when I see Vaheguru in everything, kat mein harju bas hai, santan ke bakaw dikhna shuru ho janda kat mein. Kya hai nahi? Hun ta main keh raha na, dikhya nahi mainu har Vaheguru hal sab vich. Aje main Gursev Singh hi hai. Par jadon dikhna shuru ho jaye Vaheguru hi hai, ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਫੇਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕਰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ. Then I am not doing a bad action, God's doing the bad action and he is suffering for the bad action. I don't exist. So ਮੇਰੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਸਟੈਂਸ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਕਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਬੈਡ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ, ਰੱਬ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੂੰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਸਫਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ. I'm suffering because I'm part of God and God is suffering. To say that I'm suffering never exists in that state. As long as we exist as home bubbles or home waves, we suffer for actions and reactions, or we become ਵੱਡੇ ਭਾਗਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਗਰ ਲੰਘ ਕੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਪੂਰਨ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਕਰ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪੂਰਨ ਸਮਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, one with ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, then there is no question about I did this good action or bad action. God is making me do everything because whatever is done is God's will, and only God exists there. That's one other perspective. And so I almost see it as two levels. Ek level hai where the home level is working all of this, and we have to go through this for jannah, and we have to wash ourselves in sangat and naam and bani and become better and better and merge into the one. And the other level is Chotha Pad, where you just exist in the Sandwar and all of that, and that knowing that you exist. There's no dukh sukh. Then you can be by Mati Dasi and your whole body is being sawn alive, and there is no dukh sukh because you are.
It's funny you said, because that's exactly the example came into my mind. Because suffering is a matter of perspective, right? We even know just through physical discipline, like the yogis did and some people do now, you can train your mind to ignore pain. Or the fact that they can give you some gas at a dentist office and you fall asleep and they drill and you don't feel anything. It's got to hurt the same. It's not hurting any less. You're just not feeling it. It's a perspective. And people can get into that state meditatively. Just physical discipline. Now imagine when you have the power of Nam behind it. And when you said Bhai Mati Das, that's exactly where I went. Bhai Mati Das, at the threat of being sawn alive, and Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's in a cage, asked the guy that's going to saw him, he asked, turn me towards the Guru Sahib so he can see how happy I am. Giving my life for the Guru. It's mind-blowing. To be at that level with that kind of confidence in your Guru. I'm telling you now, we have this idea that in the olden days, Gursikh, Pratham, Gursikhs, everything was walking in hand to hand with cholas and kamarkasas on and doing Simran. Sikhs were just as messed up then as they are today. There was few that were close to the Guru and were able to practice what the Guru wanted. But most of them weren't. We had the same problems. We don't listen. We've done this example at camps. You've probably done it before too. If you walked into the Diwan Hall right now and Guru Gobind Singh was sitting there, how would you act? Why don't you act that way when Guru Granth Sahib is sitting there? Perspective. Okay, let me move on. Final point I want to make about Amar at this point is that he's really starting to attach himself to the Guru. He sees the changes in his life, he sees the changes in his being, and he really starts to understand that he owes everything to his Guru. So in part 3 here, which is, we're going to start to conclude this now. Amar has gone the extra step and dedicated himself to the Guru completely. And we have Atma Paramatma Eko Kare, Antar Ki Dubda Antar Mare. That dubda, that duality that we talked about earlier, that goes away and your Atma and Paramatma become one. Okay? Jan Nanak bole chothi lave, har paya prabh avanasi. That there's been this final merging now, one with Waheguru. Okay? So, Amar has won his life. This Jivan Mukti. He's won the game. Okay? There's something I didn't tell you about this story. This is in fact a true story, and I know this guy really well. So, well, I know of him. And I bet you guys do too. If you haven't really kind of figured it out yet, Amar is actually Amar Das, as in Guru Amar Das Ji. I modernized his story, okay, told it a little differently, so we can understand how today, in our lives, when we got at work and we go on these things, how we can implement the Guru's example. It's Guru Amar Das Ji's example is amazing. Elements of the story are all true. He was somebody who used to go on these spiritual journeys, and he was somebody who used to, ignore the picture. He's somebody who used to go on these spiritual journeys and everything. He ran into somebody who was disgusted with him because he didn't have a Guru and refused to eat with him. He then heard Bibi Amaro singing Peya Manur Kanchan Fir Hova Jagur Mile Taneha heard this shabad, and even though he knew of the Guru and a little bit, he had no connection. He said, whose Bani is this? He connects with it and he starts to change. He starts doing seva for the Guru. He's the one that used to get the water, go walk, whatever it was, a mile, and then carry it in his old age. He lived that other life most of his life, right? It was later that he met the Guru and he changed. And he changed because that Manmat, he had started adopting Gurmat. That Gurmat put his body into action. The actions were serving the Guru. By serving the Guru, he made a complete transformation and later became Guru Amar Das Ji. Okay, final questions. We can wrap it up after this, but any comments or questions?
Guru Arjan Dev Ji shabd Ram Kali Raag, this one line which is Paap Pun Hamre Vasana hai. Pun Paap ta Pun, sin and virtues, ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ, it's not in my control. ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਿਸ ਨੇ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਪੁੰਨ ਪਾਪ ਦੇ ਮਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਾਪ ਪੁੰਨ ਹਮਰੇ ਵਸ ਨਾ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਮਾਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦਾ ਬੋਲੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਖੁੱਲੀ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਪਾਪ ਕਮਾਉਣ ਦੀ it's like a license to commit ਪਾਪ ਤਾਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ said so ਹੈ ਨਾ ਪਰ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ then ਆਸ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਪੁੰਨ ਕੀਆ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਪੁੰਨ ਪੁੱਛ ਲਿਆ ਤੇ we should all know this ਰਹਿਰਾ ਸਾਹ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿਰਾ ਤੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਆ ਕਾਲ ਮੇ ਇਹੋ ਪੁੰਨ ਕੀ ਆ ਪੁੰਨ
ਗੁਣ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਗਾਏ
ਕਾਲ ਯੁੱਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁੰਨ ਕੀ ਆ ਗੁਣ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਗਾਏ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਚੇਤੇ ਕਰਨਾ to praise him ਤੇ ਪਾਪ ਕੀ ਹੋਗਾ ਪਾਪ is opposite to ਪੁੰਨ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੇਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਆ ਪਾਪ ਪੁੰਨ ਹਮਰੇ ਵਸਨਾਏ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਚੇਤਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਿਸਾਰਨਾ to remember and praise ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ or to forget ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ it's not ਅਗਰ ਉਹਦੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਆ ਜਿੱਤੇ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਆ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ it's not the license to commit ਵਿਭਚਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਪੀਣੀ ਮਾਵੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਾਪ ਹੁਣ ਹਮਰੇ ਵਸਨ ਆਇਆ ਨਾ
yeah no it is that's a good point too because we do this often. Everything is in context, and at the beginning of the presentation I tried to mention that Satguru in context here is Waheguru, in context here is referring to Guru, and it's throughout Gurbani. But there's so many things in Gurbani that we don't say are true. They're not true. Is that a fair can anybody challenge me on that statement? There are things in Gurbani that are not true. Guru Nanak Dev Ji called himself Bhagathin, that he is without bhakti. We would never say that's true, right? It's Guru Sahib is showing us his humility. So you have to look at things in context always, and the same word can be used differently in different contexts. As in this case, this Pap and Pun particularly is referring to the idea of whether you're doing bhakti of Waheguru or not.
I just wanted to make one comment on
Yeah.
So earlier, like the questions about, Pop on livelihood and everything, so is it really Pop and this and that? So I think what came out of this is that, like, there's not only context in the Bani, but context of your life where you're at, right? So Bani will speak to you differently depending on what situation you're in. So like in that situation, if you're doing, using a book as a license to commit Pop or whatever, like, using it very loosely, I'm not saying people are doing that, but you know that. You know what you're doing.
Right.
It's not something that like, you're intellectualizing, you're just, you're using a crutch.
And actually you saying that just made me realize too, speaking of context, I know I just said on video that there are things in Gurbani that are not true. That I'm saying, I am saying that in the context of when Guru Sahib is...
We have never any antibiotic.
Yeah, and please don't use the clip out of context. Could definitely for it. But I was trying to make a point. Context matters greatly. Hanji.
Like you walk into Divan Hall and like Guru Gobind Singh Ji sitting, how would you react and so on, right? This was something that was brought up even in India when I used to listen to Katha, like, why don't you dress up properly when you come to Divan Hall? If you were to see the mayor or the prime minister of the country, you would dress up properly and like, is Guru Sahib any less or like that, those arguments, right? But it's okay, I can like, sada pure hai, sada matlab meat hai, right? And then you also say, and this is something which is confusing always, right? And then when you say ek nahi chakri jis ko fasal mein jana se kanje jo se it's like I kind of get messed up in this.
Yeah, okay, so on the first point, I view the Guru maybe differently than you, everybody, and I could be completely wrong. I totally accept that. I don't believe in the formality of the relationship with the Guru. I think kind of like how you were saying, if we're going to see like our father, I talk to my father casually, lovingly. I think that's the key thing that I would say, is your relationship a loving relationship with the Guru. And I don't think it matters how you dress when you have that kind of close relationship, especially with the Guru. Personally, I like, you see some of the old paintings of Darbar Sahib where Prakash is done on the ground. There's no gate, big gates, and there's no people standing around kind of blocking things, and all this gold and money and everything all over. It's literally like just Prakash with the chandoa, and the people are doing kirtan here, and everybody in the Sangat is sitting like right here, and the Guru Sahib feels approachable. I personally like that type of feeling, more home type feeling. I feel like I'm more home, that Guru Sahib is accessible, you know, but you still got to have the significance. You still have to show the significance to the Guru. So personally, I like that, and I don't necessarily believe dressing a certain way impresses the Guru at all. We're talking about, Guru Sahib is telling us this is a kapra, karmi ave kapra nadri mokduar, and then we get into the rules and stuff about what kind of kapra we put on top of this kapra. It just doesn't make sense to me. But it might to others. I'm not condemning it or anything. But yeah.
I remember like one of the earlier questions, which was about like why you get punished for like bad deeds and stuff. I had this thought, like in the very beginning of Virasab, I think it says something along the lines of, like the English translation is like, pain is like the remedy.
Dukh daru sukh rog peya.
Yeah.
Ja sukta na hoy.
You could change your perspective and not think of it as like punishment, but just something that like leads you towards finding the Guru when they present.
Right.
To you.
And again, I want to go back to like the idea of not being punished. Punish is how we're perceiving it. You're suffering. There's something inside of you suffering. And this is happening around the world. It's not just particular to us. You guys remember the Oak Creek shooting in Wisconsin, the Michael Wade Page, neo-Nazi guy shot people at the Gurdwara. You know, he was somebody who was suffering so much from his anger that it had to come outside of him. I mean, it's a kind of a difficult perspective to have on someone who just shot 6 out of hatred. But that is really, he's a human being, and the Gurbani applies to him just like anybody else. Suffering. And this happens with everything. Pornography is rampant. You know, especially with the ease of access nowadays. And we need to reflect on ourselves and think about like, what kind of garbage do I want coming in here? Because that's the garbage that's going to come out in your actions. When we're trying to reprogram ourselves, literally, Gurbani is the new programming that you're trying to download into this brain here so that the output, the actions that come out will be Guru related. Does that make sense?
चौर साहब ही चार सिंह चौर साहब कर लो
right.
चंदवा भी वीडियो चेंज कर लो कि बट गुरु साहब भी एनी ग्रेटर
right.
Bani says no. Imagine ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਾਣਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਣਾਣਾ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਕਸ਼ਹਿਰੇ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਚੱਲ ਜੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸੱਜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਉਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਵੀ ਹੋਗਾ ਬਣਾਣਾ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਜਣਾ ਨਾਲ ਐ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਿੰਕ ਡਾਟਡ ਰਮਾਲ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਬੰਨ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਸੌਰੀ ਫਨੀ ਬੜੀ ਵੈਰੀ ਐਂਡ ਰੈਡ ਕਸ਼ਹਿਰੇ just for the record I don't advocate them even though I have one in my possession with the blessings of Toronto Singhs camp so ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ so ਮਤਲਬ ਤੇ ਹਾਊ ਵੀ ਗੋਟ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਾਰਕੈਜ਼ਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਗੱਲ ਵਜਾ ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੁਣ imagine when darbar is not happening and someone goes and it might be actually like person wants to lie down and just go to sleep and mara the charan
right.
it could be that somebody just wants to have some conversation with the Guru Sahib it could be someone just stands there and cries with the Guru Sahib it might be just someone sits there and just looks at Guru Sahib that's more of a personal relationship so I think it's a kind of perspective ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵੀ ਗਏ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਹੀ ਆ ਪਰ ਇਸ I think we have to make a distinction of Guru's ਦਰਬਾਰ imagine Guru Gobind ਤਖਤ ਤੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੱਜੇ ਆ ਬ੍ਰਾਹਮਣ ਵੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਫਰਿਆਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਧੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਓ ਹਨਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ not ਉੱਥੇ formality ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ formality ਕੀ ਆ I think all this the Chaur Sahib Chandoa is actually for us to remind us that our father is the greatest of the great ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਤਾਬੀਅਤ ਤੇ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ ਕੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਫਰਕ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਤਾਬੀਅਤ ਤੇ ਬਹਿ ਗਿਆ ਹੁਣ ਕੋਈ ਪਿਓ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਬੇਬੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੇ ਵੋਮਿਟ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੰਗਲ ਪਾਲੀ ਨੈਪੀ 'ਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਮੈਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਪਿਓ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਚਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੇਸੀ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਫੇਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣ ਆਈ ਸੌਰੀ ਆਮ ਨੋਟ ਗੋਇੰ ਟੂ ਟੱਚ ਯੂ ਜਰਮਸ ਹੁਣ ਹਨਾ ਪਰ ਅਸਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਵਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਭੁੱਲਣਹਾਰ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਟੀਚਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਲਾਈਕ ਆਈ ਵਾਸ ਟਾਕਿੰਗ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਮਾਈ ਡੈਡ the more respect you give to your teacher the more you will learn and it's true that even though we say Guru Sahib Bhai Sahib da kai apne lecture kai dassya sanu samjhaya bade pyar na even though we try to be in theory have that Guru Sahib is the greatest but we do forget otherwise if Guru Sahib was the greatest we'd be ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹੋਣੇ ਹਨਾ ਪਰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਯਾਦ ਕਰੋ ਇਹ ਬਾਣਾ ਪਾਏ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ it's not for Guru Maharaj benefit I think it's for our benefit for our mind to make us like a uniform in a school ਹੁਣ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਸਕੂਲ when I was a teacher school ਨਿਆਣੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ Mr. Singh why do you have to wear a uniform and so on when it was a non-school uniform they used to go berserk perhaps I taught a few hyper kids ਮਤਲਬ ਟੱਪਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ when you wear a uniform it reminds them why I'm here ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਐਨ ਕੇਸੀ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਬਾਣਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ it reminds you of coming with a frame of mind again then at the same time ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਨਿਆਨ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਣਾ Guru Sahib ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਪੈਂਦਾ so I think that's a distinction.
No, and I totally accept your point. As a matter of fact, I'm more likely that I'm wrong about this. Okay, I'm okay. Yeah, no, but I like the way you said it better because true. If you go to the gym, you put on your gym clothes because the purpose you're going there for, you need to be ready for that, right? So you can argue the other side of that. I really like the way you framed that. That was very good.
ਜਿਸ ਗੁਰੂਸ ਕੋਟ ਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ
Yeah.
ਵੱਖਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਟ ਦਾ ਕਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਆ ਹੈਨਾ ਪਰ ਕਿੰਗ ਤਾਂ ਕਿੰਗ ਹੀ ਆ
Okay, I think last comment and then our time's over.
Just on you were saying the relationship as a friend and jeetu mitra sajna.
हाँ साजन रहा मेरा साजन रहा yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.